All right, welcome everyone. We're here at the Corvallis Country Club, and they have a little VRBO two-bedroom suite. If you're going to come to Corvallis for a football game, get a hold of the country club directly. It's better for them. They'd rather you do that, but you can book through VRBO. And nice place, newly remodeled, and it comes with a round of golf or two. So if you're ever in Corvallis area, Corvallis, Oregon, that is, this is a place to stay, the Corvallis Country Club. All right, so our guest today is former coach, coached some colleges, and what did you coach? One Chargers, right? San Diego Chargers?
Yeah, one 3-year session.
One 3-year session, all right. And so we're glad to have him, Mark Banker.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks,
Yeah,
Marcus.
thanks. So just a little bit about football. So you played high school, college, is that right?
Yeah, I played both in high school and college, and part of that's why I became a coach, because of the fact that I couldn't go any farther. They say that the coaches are the ones that can't.
Well, maybe they make the best coaches.
They make the best coaches, yeah. I played in Plymouth, Massachusetts. That's where I'm originally from. Then I went to Springfield College in the western part of Massachusetts.
Okay.
A lot of coaches have come out of Springfield. In fact, just this last Super Bowl, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, as a graduate, he was a teammate of mine, and Dave Tobe was actually a player of ours. He finished at UTEP, but he was from Springfield College as well. Yeah,
very good.
But there's a smattering all over the league and all over college football, as well as athletic training and other type of jobs related to sports that come out of Springfield College.
So they produce some pretty good, I guess they have a pretty good program there. Is that?
Oh, they have the best program.
Is it? Okay.
But it's probably sports oriented because of the fact that it started out as a YMCA training ground. I think it was opened in 1896. It's the birthplace of basketball. Naismith was there. In fact, in Judd Gym, in one of these older buildings where our football offices were, one of the peach baskets was still there. Now the Basketball Hall of Fame, which was on campus, is downtown along the river. But 86% of the student body participated in collegiate athletics.
Really? Wow.
Both men and women combined. So there's definitely an orientation towards I won't say athleticism because I went there, but towards the athletics.
Yeah. So how come I just thought of this, how come the Football Hall of Fame is in Ohio?
Canton, Ohio?
Yeah, Canton, Ohio, which I've been there.
I don't really know. Maybe it was invented there. I probably should know the origin of where football was. But I know Yale. I believe it was Yale and Harvard were in the first football game. But I don't know. I know that basketball was invented in Springfield, and then also volleyball. It was either between Holyoke or Chicopee, which is in that same general area, which is kind of interesting that those two sports, came from that area.
Huh, that is.
Yeah.
So after you got out of college, and did you go straight into coaching, or was there a couple years?
Yeah, I was actually going to get into education, be a teacher. After I did my student teaching, I was a little disappointed. You do all this prep and all this idealistic learning and preparation to become an educator, and then you go into a school, and then you figure, I was out there in student teaching, in 1977, and the world was still a little more round than it is nowadays. But I was disillusioned with the fact that they weren't all there to learn, and I prepared these great lesson plans and did my darndest to have a unique and a good way to present the lesson plan so that everybody could learn, because I've always been into teaching. I've always enjoyed doing that. And I came back from that experience and had an exit interview with my head football coach at the time at Springfield, Howard Vanesey. And I had already had a job. It was in Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I was all set to take that. And he said, well, hey, you're all set, right? And I said, well, Coach, to be honest with you, no. And then he mentioned to me about being a graduate assistant. And I had no idea because I had no family background or anything like that. I didn't know anybody that was ever a graduate assistant, didn't know what that was. Had him explain it to me, and that's kind of where I started. I came back the next year, worked on my master's for 2 years with him at Springfield, and then ended up with a full-time job in Los Angeles, California.
That's where coaching took off then.
That's where coaching took off. I went to Los Angeles kind of in the back of my mind when I was a freshman in high school. I stayed in the band with probably about 7 or 8 other kids that were not going to participate in the band because they were going to be more involved with athletics at the high school level. But our band director, Mario Cresciati, talked us into staying. He came actually to our intermediate school and recruited us. So we stayed. He said, hey, you get a 4-credit A. You don't have to come to band class first period. The only obligation you'll have will be at the end of December to practice. And from there, we're going to the Rose Bowl. And I said, Rose Bowl? He said, yeah, we're going to march in the Rose Bowl parade. And then next thing you know, there I am in a pool in West Covina, and it was about 82 degrees on January 1st. We had just marched 7.5 miles, and I was looking up at the Angeles Crest Forest outside of Pasadena there, and saying, this wouldn't be a bad place to come back to. So it wasn't anything in the forefront, but it was always something in the back of my mind that I'd like to go to Southern Cal to eventually work or live or what have you. And it just so happened that an opportunity came up, and I took it and got my Datsun B210 and drove cross country, and that took my first job at Cal State Northridge.
That's good. So is coaching, is there a lot of people that are looking for that job? So is that like a competitive thing?
Yeah, I would say kind of a comparison to that, especially at the collegiate level. We have a national convention, the AFCA convention, American Football Coaches Association, and it's annually. It's right about the second week in January. It coincides with the national championship.
Oh, okay. We
always say there's 8,000 people at the convention, 10,000 people at the convention, and about 70% of them have jobs and 30% are looking for jobs. And those are the people that have been in the profession. But I think as time has gone by, and especially the fact that with media, it's so popular of a game to watch on TV. We were just talking about that a little bit ago, that I never knew how many games were on TV until I retired 2 years ago. And people see it and they want to be a part of that life. And now the advertised salaries that are out there that these guys are making, I kind of missed the boat on that a little bit. But I think that's probably in most professions as economics have increased over time. But there's a lot of people that want to get in. I used to always have questions from guys who were in high school or in junior colleges. Hey, how do I get to the 4-year level? And you explain to them how you started as a graduate assistant, which is probably the most common way that people do that, because it's like an apprenticeship at the same level that you're trying to enter into as a full-time coach. But now I've even had former players that haven't coached at all, that have been in other professions. Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I always say to them, well, that's a good question. If you've got a great friend that's willing to take a chance on you, that's maybe the head coach or an athletic director that can get your foot in the door, just like anything, it's a lot of times who you know, then maybe that's the case. But most guys, start out as graduate assistants, and it has become a very popular field. I think it always was, but I think even more so now because they've expanded the size of the staffs too in collegiate football.
So they've added more jobs to that?
Oh,
all kinds of stuff.
Even from here, I was with Mike Riley a long time. And, you know, I can remember when we came to Oregon State in 97, 98, and we had just a little staff room. It was also doubled, I think, as the mailroom for the rest of the athletic department.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'd squeeze 10, 12 people in there at the time.
Yeah.
And I could still think of one of our other coaches. He was our defensive coordinator at the time, Greg Newhouse. We said, how can we get anything done with all these people here?
Yeah.
And then move forward from 97, 98 to 2015, 16, when we went to Nebraska, and we're having a staff meeting, and there had to have been 35, 38
Really?
people in there. You know, you had not only your football staff, but then you had the GAs, the interns, the analysts, the strength conditioning coaches, the trainers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the academic people, all these people that surround the sport.
Has to do with
I've got a good friend that was just at LSU this past year. He was an offensive analyst there. He'd been a head coach in the past, and he's in the twilight of his career. And he said that football alone, there were probably in the 75 to 80 people that surrounded the program. He said, there's no way that I would know even half of those people.
Yeah, you probably would. So probably when you were coaching, did you do your own recruiting then too?
Oh
Or
yeah,
did they?
yeah.
You did. A lot
Recruiting's
Of, coaches did a lot of things, right?
recruiting's a whole different animal now.
Yeah.
The model that collegiate athletics has gone towards now is more of the NFL, where you have your own personnel department.
Okay.
And you know, there was such a regulation in the bylaws with the NCAA manual that you could only have certain people staffing certain positions. And now, you know, maybe over the last 2 years I've lost touch with that, which I've lost touch with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And people would say I lost touch when I was coaching too, but you'd have a personnel department now.
Yeah.
So you've got guys that are, you know, watching the tape. They set the table. The coaches, you know, would still have somewhat of a final answer as to who they're going to coach.
Yeah.
The head coach, obviously, the coordinators, but you have personnel people that set the table. You have people that when somebody comes on campus, they take care of them. And now you have NIL people, name, image, and likeness. They're the ones that have the pocketbook, you know. How much is this offensive tackle worth? How much is this quarterback worth? How much are we going to give this guy? And this, so there's a whole personnel department, and it's the NFL on steroids, where the NFL even has constraints.
Yeah.
And you know, the major college football programs in Division I now, it's really out of control. There are no controls.
Well, they can offer them whatever they want to offer them.
Whatever they want, and the people that can talk to them now don't even have to be a part of the athletic department.
Really?
Shouldn't. They're not supposed to. I don't think they are, but they're the ones that are, you know, putting the money in. You know, so it's a whole nother world out there.
No, I'm sure it is. So,
Yeah.
so what was it like going? So you coached college first, right?
Yes.
And then you coached the Chargers for, what do you say, 4 years?
For 3 seasons.
Three seasons.
Yeah, for 3
So what was the
seasons.
difference in that going from the college level to the NFL level coaching? Was there a big difference there?
Well, number one, the length of the season is very different. The interaction with the players is different because, you know, the players in college live on your campus. So you could have them show up in your office on any different, you know, times, days of the week, a year, or whatever. We're in the NFL. It's truly a job.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, basically somewhat of an 8 to 4 type of job. You know, during the course of the week, they're real pros. I was fortunate to be with one of the all-time pros, is Junior Seau. And there'd be mornings, Junior would be there before anybody in the building. He'd be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, and he'd do anything from physical therapy with his therapist, with his chiropractor. While they were working on his body, he was watching film. He'd be in the cold tub, the hot tub. They had a early morning weightlifting group on their own, but you had to be invited. Don't just show up. You had to be invited.
Okay.
Yeah, it was called the Breakfast Club. But the relationships that you had with them were, were on just a different level. I mean, just football wise alone, I mean, you're talking in a lot of cases to the pros.
Yeah.
When I say pros, there's a separation for the guys that are on the roster.
Yeah.
They knew as much or more than you did about the game itself. You pretty much gave them the game plan. You could help them out with the technique.
Yeah.
Help them get a half a step.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, you were worth something to them.
Yeah.
You learn very early, and I learned from some of my peers that were already in the NFL. They told me, said, if I could give you one bit of advice, it would be if a player comes to you and asks you a question, make sure you're right with the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if they know that they can count on you, that you can help them, they'll come back. As soon as you lead them in the wrong direction, then they'll never come back to you again.
That's probably that's a pretty that's the difference there. Huh?
There's a big difference because there's a trust factor, because you're talking about somebody's livelihood.
Yeah.
They'd always talk about getting in somebody's back pocket.
Yeah,
They weren't keen on seeing those rookies come in, because that guy's coming here to take my place.
Yeah.
And that's kind of flipped in college football.
Yeah.
The young guys, the apprentices, and they were working their way up to be like these guys. And not that it's not like that in the NFL, but the young guys were coming in with those fresh legs.
Yeah.
And without the bumps and bruises that some of the vets had. But the one thing you couldn't replace on the vets was their knowledge of the game.
Yeah, that's.
But that's probably the biggest difference, was the relationships were just different. That, and then what was always the draw for me in college football is you could really teach from day one till they left, and really try to help them improve and progress, and then to see the improvement was always the great satisfaction. That I know I personally, and I know a lot of people in the profession, just like any teacher, got from being a coach.
Yeah, I think that'd be one of the best things too, is just to watch that.
Oh, the progression
from when they come in, the first year to their last year out. So in college, when you were coaching a lot, was that, how many hours a day was that during like their season? I guess it was. Would they be?
You could put in a 14, 16-hour day easily, and a lot of the bulk of the work, it was usually done on Sundays, because Sundays you would wrap up Saturday's game, and then move on to the opponent. And what you're trying to do on Sundays is study the opponent, and we'd break that up. Like, as the defensive coordinator, I'd watch an entire game and get a feel for the rhythm of the game. Other people would be in charge of breaking down their run game. Other people would be in charge of breaking down their first or second down pass. Somebody else would have their third down pass. Another person would have run and pass for the red zone. And then on Mondays, we would all come together. And sometimes if we had time, we would try to get together real briefly Sunday night. But we'd get all that stuff done along with our graduate assistants and get that all on paper. And then as time went by, we'd get it on a tablet so the players could have it on an iPad. So we'd present the game plan and then the scouting report on that to the players, and then present that on Monday. But usually in the evening, usually in the morning and afternoon, what we would do is we would game plan. We'd watch all the cut-ups and get that ready. And then if you had any sort of practice on Mondays, usually something real brief, you'd do some of the meat and potatoes, introducing the new game plan a little bit, and then get ready for Tuesday's practice, a little bit on Monday night, and then depending on whether you practiced in the morning or in the afternoon, because it's become very popular to practice first thing in the morning. So we'd have to get ready for practice for that morning, and probably have a meeting, with the players by 7:30 in the morning, and then you're on the field by 9 o'clock.
Wow.
And then once that's over, you watch practice, you grade it, you have the players come back in, you meet with them, and then now you're working on the next element. Usually you would take first and second down and short yardage together. You'd take third down the next day, and then you'd take the red zone the following day, and then put it together on Thursdays. So those days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, were very long days.
Yeah.
Long
Getting
days
all
to get all that, because you always wanted to be ready for when the players came in, so you could have a great chance at presenting that material to them, because you really only have one chance.
Yeah.
You don't want to present them with something, whether it be a game plan or something about the opponent, and then have to backtrack on it.
Yeah.
It takes away from the kind of the rhythm and the flow of the week. And the thing you're trying to do too is you're trying to study the opponent, and little things like nowadays in the shotgun, the quarterback timing up the snap for your blitzes and things like that, or moving in the secondary in disguise. Some quarterbacks just keep their hands open, and they'll bring them together, or have some kind of a flinch with their hands when the ball is going to be snapped, or they're going to clap, or they're going to rub their thigh so the center can see it, and different things like that. So you try to pick that up for timing on blitzes, and everybody would try to do it, or a tackle stance for pass and run.
I never thought about that. I've watched quarterbacks do different things.
So like our defensive philosophy was we would teach more about what the offense would do than what we were going to do on defense. We had all spring and all summer camp to teach them about our defense and how to play it.
Yeah.
And continue to perfect the techniques, but we want to study that offense, and we want to know what they're doing before they even do it, just by looking at a formation.
Yeah,
looking at a motion,
looking
at a way the backs up to the running backs high and tight to the quarterback. It's going to be an inside zone. He's low and wide. It's going to be outside zone, or it's going to be pass. Just all those little things,
So you're just studying individuals.
Yeah, and can I give it to the player?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to over-consume them with this information, because it might. I might be able to talk to you, but I can't talk to him.
Yeah.
Hey, don't listen. Hey, I saw this on tape. If you could, because if he's looking at it, that's next thing you know, the ball snapped and he's not doing his job.
Okay. So
so
that's interesting. So you tell this person something, but not that person.
Correct.
So you're not. I used to. I guess I tell right now. I used to thought it was kind of a team huddle where you told everybody.
Oh yeah, well everybody knows the play.
But when you're telling something,
if Joey's having a hard time to just go to his biology class, and he's not clued into what's going on the football class, then I'm going to tell the guy that's doing a good job in both biology and football, hey, when that back's wide now, it's a good tip-off that he's going to run that wide zone.
So the whole team doesn't necessarily need to know.
So instead of everybody having to know that clue, as soon as you see it, you tell me.
Yeah.
You tell me.
That's interesting.
This guy Jimmy Vaccarello, who was our linebacker coach with the Chargers, he had coached Lawrence Taylor, Mark Gastineau. He'd been a coordinator himself in a couple of different teams, the Vikings, the Cardinals, over time, and I used to love to hear his insight. He was with the I can't remember the name, that steel trap.
Yeah.
He was with the Chicago Bears when they had the 46 defense. Buddy Ryan was the big thing at that time, and he said they had some great players, but he said what they would do is they literally line them up, smart, not so smart, smart, not so smart. So that way they're the smart guy could tell this guy because this guy just so happened to be the one that could make the plays.
Really? That's,
You know?
they had that figured out.
Yeah, so they had that figured out a long time ago.
That's interesting. So what? I always wondered. So you have the quarterback, your main quarterback. Then you have the, what do you call it, second one or
Backup?
Backup.
Yeah.
And then there's what, another one yet? 2, 3, or something.
Yeah,
Third backup?
you hope you have depth, you know,
Depth, yeah.
just like all
So
positions.
do those guys fight for that number one position?
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, is it all season they're doing that, or is that in practice? And when you come to the season, they
Yeah.
just kind of know they're.
I think it's one of the toughest positions to coach and keep your room, you know, in that team philosophy, because all the quarterbacks know that there's only one.
Yeah.
Very seldom do you take a quarterback out because then that affects the whole, just the cadence itself.
Yeah.
Because even though you have the same words in the cadence, it might be the flow of the cadence. It might be the person's voice, the inflection, and all that stuff. They make so much in the NFL. They make so much about Aaron Rodgers, the way he barks out a cadence, and all those things are true. That kind of goes back to recruiting also, in that it's always good to have the classes staggered. Sometimes it doesn't hurt not to recruit a quarterback within every class. That way you don't have a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman all bundled, because the freshman's looking going, I'm going to wait through that whole line to get there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with having a missing piece in that chain.
Okay.
But yeah, every position is the same from a standpoint of competitiveness, because when you've got a situation like that, when the players are competing against one another, it's hands down the best thing that can ever happen to, not only in football but any team, because every day when you show up to practice, you got to compete.
Yeah.
You can't take time off. You know, it's the things that athletes do when nobody's looking that are the most important. Because the guy that just shows up to practice, or just shows up to the weight room, or just shows up to the field to do his running when they're supposed to, you know, they'll be all right. But it's that person, it's that athlete that's out there maybe on a, you know, late Saturday afternoon when there's not anything going on, that maybe they throw the cones out and do some agility drills, or go up in the office and maybe watch a little more film, and whether it's to study themselves or study another great player ahead of them in their position, or just watch game film or whatever, see if he can find those clues. You know, but it's still the toughest room, because a lot of positions will rotate.
Yeah.
You know, they'll you know, guys, you know, defensive linemen are notorious. We always wanted to play 8 defensive line. We were a 4-down scheme, and we always wanted to have 8 defensive linemen that were interchangeable, that could play.
Yeah.
So that way they could, you know, you could spell even your great ones. You wanted to spell them. Say, hey, okay, hey, come here. Get them out on first down. See how that goes. Okay, say, hang in there. Let's second. Okay, hey, third down, go. And now he's off and running. And that offensive tackle's been, you know, blocking this guy that's been hammering him. And then all of a sudden you come in and just, you know, blow by him.
Yeah.
So there's always that part that you know there's going to be rotation. That's not the case in that running back room. And that's really the only position that's like that in football, in my opinion.
Yeah. Really, that's all the other positions. You
got a chance.
Yeah,
you got a chance.
You got a chance. That's good.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite team to coach?
Oh,
or you don't have one?
You know, I don't. My favorite ones were the ones that you know, you obviously won.
Yeah.
Because you always, you know, you those winning seasons, there's nothing like that, because like you ask about the amount of time that you put in. When you put that much of time in, man, there's got to be a reward more than more than
wasn't a
just,
fair
hey,
question.
boy, you did a great job,
Yeah,
you know. But you know, I look back when I first started in that job. I said that my first job was at a place called California State University Northridge.
Yeah.
They don't even play. They don't play football anymore. They dropped it in 97, 98, somewhere around there. And but it was one of those where, I mean, talking about close to football player, because we had a lot of guys, hard luck guys. I mean, I still talk to some. I was just talking to one, this fellow Lou Green. Lou Green lived in a dugout at Chabot Junior College. And I didn't know that until I was taking a whole van load of players back from a recruiting weekend back to some of the Northern California JCs where we brought them down from. And Lou was supposed to get out. Lou Stanley, he says, "No, Coach, I'll go back down with you." I go, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, what's for me here? I've already finished, and I just come back here." And I didn't believe him. And he said, "No, I'll show you where I live." And he showed me. It was the dugout of the baseball field.
Really?
And that's an extreme situation, but you had a lot of hard luck kids that really appreciated everything that we gave them, which we didn't give them much.
Yeah.
You know, most of them were all on financial aid, and that's how we found some of these guys. And those were the kind of the guys that we worked with, and got them grant and aids and things like that, with some scholarship money. Our weight program, there was no weight coach. I happened to be the weight coach.
Yeah.
And then the other coaches would join in, and they'd coach the bench press, they'd coach the power clean, they'd coach the squat. And there's the Friday afternoon, and ready break, and everybody take off, and then you'd go back to your office to grab your things to go home to your family, and you'd look over at these dorms were like apartments where they lived, and some of them lived in apartments, and you'd see them out there. They'd all be together. They'd be barbecuing.
Oh yeah.
You know, and those are some of my fondest memories. But you know, we had some great teams here and more importantly, when I say great teams, great individuals on teams that here at Oregon State. You know, I was only at Stanford for one season, but the secondary I had there grew very close to them. I had a unique year there. I lived in an RV outside the stadium because my son was a senior in high school, and I didn't want to move him out of San Diego. And that's where I went right after the Chargers. I was the defense coordinator at Stanford, and they'd come over by my RV, and I'd cook them dinner out on my barbecue. You know, every once in a while. And of course, the Chargers. You know, the memories there. You know, relationships with, Junior Seau. It doesn't get any better. You know, Rodney Harrison, although Rodney was always screaming at me, you know, he's such a hothead, but just a great guy, just a wealth of knowledge. So I didn't per se have any specialty in Nebraska when we were there for I was just there for a short period of time. I was just there for a couple of years, but I could just think of all the different stops I made. Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii's probably interesting.
You know, had a tragic situation there. Had a player commit suicide. And I was back here in Corvallis, as a matter of fact. My wife and I were here on vacation before we went back, you know, for the long haul. And my son was out here too, and I had to leave. I just felt like I had to leave. It happened over the July 4th weekend, so I flew back, and all my lifelong lessons were through football. I went back with every sense of compassion. At the same time, I picked up two of the players that was the leaders in the group. Didn't say too much other than the fact that I'm picking you up. And I got there the next day, picked them up. We went to dinner and talked very little about what transpired. Talked more about how they were doing, where they were at mentally and things like that. And then told them, have the group ready at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And so left them off, went back, got out, 9 o'clock. We did a 2-hour workout with just linebacker individual drills. And then at the end of that week, we ended up having a celebration of life for Cheyenne Sanator. That was the young man's name. He was from American Samoa.
Oh, yeah.
There was great eulogy by a former UH player, Joe Onosai, who also played in the NFL a little bit. And then, and then came home, and then the season, and before the season started, those two players said, "Coach, that was the best thing that's ever happened." Yeah. I said, "What was that?" And I thought he was talking about the Cheyenne or the surf. He said that you came and we worked out for 2 hours. Yeah. It helped us, work through those processes. So again, my recollection and my memories of so much seasons aren't there, as opposed to the individuals that you're associated with, and that you really got to know on a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you have a lot of good stories, a lot of good memories of just coaching over the years.
Stories that people either get tired of hearing of, or as my wife would say, the way I tell stories, she's always giving me this: speed up.
Yeah, hurry up. She's heard it before.
But some stories people wouldn't even believe, but they're all great memories. Yeah, I wouldn't trade in for anything.
No, that's good. So no, thanks for taking the time to sit down and talk and tell me and tell everybody else a little bit about your career. And,
I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to do this.
Yeah. So is football something that you like? I guess we were talking earlier, but you don't necessarily sit down and watch every game, or sometimes you do. Sometimes
people always ask, "Do you miss it?"
Yeah.
Yes, it's in my DNA. Yeah. 45 years of coaching a game, and not only coaching it, teaching it, studying it. All the things that we talked about, the relationships. I watch for different reasons. I watch, I found myself watching let alone football, I found myself watching the damn women's basketball
well, that's a pretty big thing.
Playoffs, and I would never do that. And I just enjoyed it from the characters. Again, the individuals who were in it, the storylines.
They got more views than the men's,
and there's more athleticism now in women's basketball. But there's the DVR. I can watch games on DVR if I want. I really have a hard time listening to the talking heads. The only talking heads that I really enjoy listening to, again, are probably even basketball. And I'm not really a basketball guy. I like listening to Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and those guys. They're enjoyable to listen to. But listening to the announcers talk about games, I like Tony Romo. I can stand that. But the games that I pick and choose are usually if coaches, former players are involved in, and because I feel like I've got a little bit of a stake in it, or I know it's a high-level game and it's going to be quality football, because I think some of the product that's out there now, especially in the NFL, some of it's not good football. And I think it's a direct result of where college football has gone to, that the teachers are no longer the coaches. The coaches are there because they are the recruiters. They know social media. They know how to interact with players on a different level, on their age, as opposed to being necessarily the adults that are there to teach them and how to grow as both people and, more importantly, in the game of football. Because a lot of people just take the material that they have and then spew it forth. They don't know what's the genesis of that material. How did it seed? How did it grow?
Yeah.
So that then you can manipulate it, and then you can take that and then pass it on in increments to a player so he can really develop.
Yeah, probably that mentorship thing has kind of changed a little bit
Yeah,
as far as a coach.
I mean, I still, I enjoy going to practices. I go down to practice here at Oregon State.
Yeah.
I live out in Arizona, in the Phoenix area. I've gone over to Arizona State. I've watched them. I've got a good friend that's out in Vienna, Austria, and I've coached. In 17, I coached out in Vienna, Austria. I coached in Istanbul, Turkey, and I even went to the CFL to see what that was all about for a month. And
Well, that was probably a little different coaching over there, huh?
oh yeah,
That's
and just learning. My last 4 years, I think I shared that with you. Just learning a different way of doing things as a position coach, as opposed to being a coordinator for 30 of the 45 years that I was in. Learning a new scheme, seeing it from a different perspective. Instead of coaching the secondary, coach the linebackers. Coach the secondary, but coach a different scheme rather than split safety secondary, single safety secondary, and things of that nature. So you always learn, and when I watch a game on TV, I can't necessarily watch it from that standpoint. I'll go to practice, and most people that are there, the fans or people that are interested in going to practice, they'll watch it from the sideline. And I like it watching it from behind, so I could see the pieces move. I could see how they're lined up, and a little bit more analytical like that. And you can't get away from, God, if I wish I could talk to that player, I could help him out, try to do this. Let me just stay out of it,
That probably does. Huh?
Yeah, so I just kind of walk away, and the head coach now here, Trent Brea, he lives next door to my condo here, and hey, you came down to practice. Where'd you go? I go, practice was over, so I left.
Yeah.
I thought I'd see you maybe when you came home.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thank you again, and it was great to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcus.
Yep.
Do this again.
Yep.